Oh, how do I do that? Welcome to the live. Coming back for the second time today. Thanks for everybody for joining. Hope you don't swing by. That is not the poll that I want to put up. How do I do the polls? Just give me a moment to get the right poll up, and I hope you stick around. And that poll, as everybody starts to join, I wanted to see if I can get a new poll going. No, it's not the poll I want. And that poll. So I have a poll that I want to take for everybody that's joining about if independents or third parties could win, would you vote for them? But I'm still trying to figure out how to get the poll up that I created, custom poll. So this should be an interesting live. I hope so. I think it's an interesting topic, but we'll find out in a moment. I'm going to take some guests and you can let me know, do you vote blue or red only, and why do you do so? Very much like to know that. As again, I'm trying to still a rookie at the polls here because it's going to be important. And stick around. Please don't just swing by or scroll by. No doom scrolling, because this is going to be an interesting conversation. And if you haven't subscribed or followed to me yet, please do so. Wow. Don't know how to do it. Maybe if Mr. Global joins, we can talk about it. Red only or red? Is that red only? Let me know. I'm going to try and throw up a poll here in a moment. See if I can get a moderator in here to help me with that poll. But I don't know why. So maybe someone can tell me. I just created a poll before I started the live, but for some reason I can't get it posted here. So poll and vote. I don't have the options for that. Interesting. All right. Well, we'll have to get forward going anyway. Maybe more people will join as we're just getting the live started. An interesting topic. I think it's an interesting topic. I know it's, an election cycle, but this is important for all of our lives, right? If we want to eliminate corruption from our government, we know it's not going to happen from both parties. It's going to take something different, and what people would say is impossible, but it's certainly not impossible. Is overhaul absolutely, even though they never will. That's cool. So you'd vote independent if they could win. Well, you just have to think back to 1992. It is possible. You can get on the ballots. You can market yourself to people. These days, it's not that impossible. Of course, it's not easy, but it's also not complex. And yes, it requires some money, but there's also organizations to do that. So this is not about, is it going to happen anytime soon? It's not going to happen immediately. But my contention is, like, if you really care about the country and you really care about your lives, then it's going to take 50 to 70 million people that are going to have to come together and realize eliminating corruption from our government and replacing all career politicians from both parties. It's the only way. Everything else is just a Band-Aid. I guarantee you, I am certain of that after watching the state of our country over the past 40 years. Nothing is going to change in our country unless we unite and we stop fighting this red versus blue thing, because that's what they want us to do. When I say they, I mean special interests, billionaires, corporations, those people in power, existing politicians. Maybe it's a 20-year effort, Maureen. That's possible. But, if you go back to 1992 and Ross Perot and the Reform Party, it just took one candidate to start to get that going. And that was not a 20-year effort. That was only a couple of years in the making. And it showed that it could actually happen. So I'd like to take a poll, but I haven't figured out yet how to put the poll up on the screen. And maybe if other people join, I can get a moderator in here. Mr. Global's there. Welcome, Mr. Global. I had a poll ready to go, but now apparently I can't post it. So kind of crazy. Welcome, Mr. Global, again. Yo. So we got some more people in here. I think this is a good topic. What do you think? All right. So we have, I think this is the one. Well, I don't, what do I know? Who knows if this is the one, but I really want to know. And I think we're going to have to do this one again, because I created a poll before I started this live, and I wanted to see, just out of people scrolling by, hopefully they'll take the poll and say, I'm only going to do red. I'm only going to do blue. But I would vote independent or third party if it was possible. right?
I think if you, I don't know how you make someone a moderator, but I could set that up for you.
Okay, let's see. If everybody can hang out just a moment, let me add Mr. Global as a moderator here. I just had it a moment ago. Now I can't find to do it.
Yeah, I've found that their app is a little wonky sometimes, but if not a big deal.
I'd really like to do it. All right. So, yeah, as people are scrolling by, leave me in the comments. At least we can get sort of an idea. People already mentioned that you can't because of the Electoral College, or I forget what the other comment was, but someone mentioned that you can't do it. But I don't believe that. Let's see. All right. I think we're going to have to work on it for another time. So if anyone wants to join as a guest, then let me know why you would only vote blue or red, or if you would vote independent or third party if they could win, right? It's a big if, but maybe not as big as we all think it is, right? So it is possible. It's not impossible. Anything is possible. Absolutely, Maureen. You know, if you've watched my lives before, you realize that I've mentioned 1992 in the Reform Party of 1992. Devin, you're going to come in just a moment, that it showed that it could happen, not that it did happen, but it could have happened because Ross Perot was polling at 39% of the polling in the summer of 1992 before he dropped out of the race, and he still got 20 million votes. So it was a big deal, but everyone wants us to forget that. So we're going to let the first guest in, Devin. Let's keep it civil. If you can let me know your generation and are you an American, and then what are your thoughts?
What? Yeah, I'm an American. My thoughts are simple. I think that it's really come out that it's true that it doesn't matter if you vote red or blue. APAC is the one that's in charge of everything that's going on.
Everything
It's
comes back to APAC, huh?
pretty. I mean, yeah, it's pretty extremely frustrating when you start to hear from even people like anyone. They have their APAC handler, right? You start to look into what Doge discovered, and you find out that women in Israel get, and I'm not, please don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to get you kicked out, but you start to discover that women who identify as women who have babies in
Okay,
Israel.
Devin, I'm gonna have to shut you off a little bit. You're going too much off base here. There are many
Okay, well,
special.
I was just going to say
Yeah,
that they get checks every month until their child's 18.
I don't know what your
And
point
we
is.
don't
What's your
do that
point?
for our own. Yeah, well, we don't do that for our own people here in America. So when all of us are just working slaves for a dystopian government, it's a little frustrating. And I don't think it really matters if you vote red or blue. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts, yeah, I think we're in a problem where it doesn't matter so much what you vote red or blue because we're not really voting by parties. There's a lot of special interests influencing it. And what you mentioned is just one of hundreds of special interests that are trying to position themselves to take over our government or to influence our government as much as possible. So you have one
Yeah,
opinion regarding one country. You may not like everything they're doing. I don't necessarily disagree, but
I wouldn't talk out against them.
yeah, what you have to realize, there are many countries in the world that give their citizens a lot of money as well. So again, these are special interests, like a lot of other
What other
special interests.
countries give more money to another country than they do their own citizens? What just name one other
Well, what
country
facts do you
just so I
have to
know.
support that?
Well, APAC
APAC is a
and
is
all the NGOs.
APAC raises money like any other special interest group does and Super PAC does, right? So what they do with that money is up to them, right?
Mm, no, no,
APAC is not.
I don't think it's the same.
So
I
I was
actually don't think. that's the same at
Go ahead,
all.
let Mr. Global speak for a second. Go ahead.
Sure.
Well, you prompted me because this oftentimes gets brought up, right? We're all like APAC, APAC, APAC. So I was like, I just did a simple search, things that APAC votes for. And obviously it's just kind of like a generic overview,
Hmm.
but primarily, and I'm not for or against them. I'm just purely just describing what this is saying. So according to APAC's website and reporting on activities, its key issues include military and financial assistance, countering Iran, combating anti-Israel movements, and promoting peace initiatives.
Yeah, and Mr. Global, when you look that up, how many NGOs were they a part of?
To be frank with you, I haven't gone that deep, so I can
Yeah,
certainly
I
look
think
that
that
up.
would be the actual search is how many NGOs does APAC fund? And then I would take another look at that because off of what you said was they wanted to support Iran, which obviously we know that couldn't possibly be the truth because we just bombed Iran.
No, it's not support Iran.
Yeah,
Nothing Israel do is
countering
supporting Iran.
Iran.
They want Iran to be eradicated.
Mm,
Correct.
mm.
Right.
Okay. So let's look at it again, gentlemen. Do you think that we are doing the best for America or we are doing the best for Israel?
All right.
APAC does not directly fund many non-governmental organizations.
Hey, I'll wait, Mr. Global. Why don't you Google that, take a look, and
I
then
just
tell
did.
us all how many NGOs APAC funds that directly support Israel? I believe it's 2,300, I believe, is the number.
Well, I mean, if I guess it really just depends on what your perspective is. If we truly
Well,
are
if money goes to
the,
Israel from America, that would be a direct supporting base.
well, I'm just saying there's a lot of members
I'm just saying the
lobbying,
same thing.
a
All
lot of
right.
lobbying members, right? So
The Dev, we're getting really off course. It was a simple conversation.
Well,
Why do you
and
vote red or
the
blue?
answer is very simple. We are both voting for the same party because neither party is in control of the United States. We are all being manipulated by an outside entity. And that is what we should be worried about
All right.
and what we should be talking
The
about.
Dev, you're maybe a little bit too focused on one adversary, and maybe you're not necessarily wrong in all respects, but you may want to broaden your horizon a little bit and realize that we are being manipulated and exploited by all types of special interests. That includes foreign agents, that includes
Absolutely.
Christian nationals, that includes all types of different special interests, and that has
So I
valid.
would argue that point. Like, how are we being manipulated by Christian nationalists?
How are we? So you have the Heritage Foundation and the Cambridge Institute trying to turn America into a non-secular country.
Can I ask you a question?
One,
What would you define as a Christian nationalist country?
it's something where you have the Christian values are taught in the schools, and the government makes laws based on Christian values. That would be it.
And what do you think our country was founded on?
It was not, it was actually founded, the Constitution was founded on a secular document that was meant to be a separation of church and state. So it was now, many of the values that those individuals put into American values do come from Christian values in the background. That does not make us a Christian country. And anyone who says so is.
So I'll go with the background of the values that were created. And then I would ask you to elaborate on your
It doesn't matter where.
who actually conquered this country and created this nation.
Empires, people from nations all over Europe, mostly Protestants, right? Were a form of Christians, but they were not Roman Catholics, right? So
Why?
that's a lot of them, but they came from many different
who
countries.
Was Christopher Columbus?
What does it matter? That's not American values. See, so clearly you are a supporter of Christian nationalism.
What do you mean? That's history, man.
No,
it's history.
But you don't. So maybe you need to go back and read the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution
Sure.
and the
And
writings in the
and I can
Federalist
get
Papers
into that with you in
and,
just a second.
the
But
Fed.
who was Christopher Columbus?
All right, Mr. Dadev, I think I made my point very clear. I'm going to boot you now, and I don't take the Christian
Gotta
national nonsense. Goodbye. All right, but thanks for watching. So, doesn't matter where you think the background of our values come from. So, American values, freedom and liberty, that has nothing necessarily to do with Christian values. Equality, individualism, democracy, rule of law, innovation, diversity. Those are American values. Whether they are derived from people that had some religious beliefs is mostly irrelevant. And that is not what they intended this country to be developed, or its vision was not supposed to be a Christian-based vision. If you think otherwise, then it's nonsense and you're being delusional. Did I get my point across, Mr. Global?
I think you did. I'm pretty sure Homeboy or our last guest had a couple drinks,
Yeah, he sounded
and
to be
he
slurring
was,
his words a little bit, didn't he?
and there's no problem with that. I mean, to each his own, but I think I think his mind was pretty set on this thing, and look,
A lot of hate there, right? There's a lot of
we
he needs a little help because there's a lot of hate there between Israel
well,
and
yeah, and it does tend to spiral if it's not checked, right? But we can't ignore it, obviously,
yeah.
but I don't know. It's tough. You can tell he was frustrated.
Yeah. All right. So we have another guest that's going to join, independent. Oh, well, I wonder where this guy stands. I can't read his full username, but it has independent in his name. So I'm thinking we probably know where he leans.
Hey everyone, can you hear me?
Hey, man. How you doing? Welcome.
I'm doing great. I appreciate you. I just kind of stumbled upon you. I saw the poll question, and yeah, I think you definitely know where I lean when it comes to that. But I guess tell me a little bit about why you're asking the question, and then I can kind of give you my perspective.
Well, I asked the question, this is the topic today because I am always trying to get the message out that we need to eliminate the corruption by billionaires, corporations, and all the special interests, right? All the big money in our politics, because representation doesn't represent the people. It represents the people that are paying those elected officials to run for
Yep.
office. So that's one aspect. And my contention is that it doesn't matter if you vote blue or red, none of that is ever going to change because we can't eliminate corruption with the existing two parties. So my question is
Correct.
based on if there was a third party that was large enough, would had a big enough movement, or if there were
Yep.
enough independents, and if they could win, would the majority, not the majority, but how many people would run away from the red or blue party and want to disrupt both parties and vote for something
Yeah.
different?
I think you're right on it there, and I'll give you the short version of my background. I not trying to toot my own horn or anything, but so there's the DNC that supports Democrats. There's the RNC that supports Republicans, like you said, in this two-party duopoly. About 2 years ago, I founded a group called the INC, the Independent National Coalition, to kind of do what exactly you're talking about, building the infrastructure to allow people to leave the red team versus the blue team. I think the problem with third parties right now, like with Forward trying their attempt to kind of modernize the idea of third parties, and you've got the Green Party, you've got the Libertarian parties. No one is really unchecking the party box to then check another party box. So the way that
Mm.
we're kind of framing it is we want to connect like working class independence on a national economic reform, but allow them to kind of delineate to local constituency issues and how they represent. So, kind of be an independent representative and not a party politician. What are your thoughts on that?
Mr. Global, you want to go first?
I'm gonna be honest. There's a lot of words there that I'm having trouble grasping. But basically, what I'm hearing is that you're asking everyday individuals to help guide that that party. Is that what I'm getting? Or
Well, so like I worked on the Dan Osborne campaign in Nebraska last year. He was an independent that ran for Senate against Deb Fisher. And essentially his platform was, I'm a working class mechanic and there's only 2% of working class people in office and we don't have any representation. I'm
Interesting.
running to represent the people of Nebraska, not a national political forum. And now I'm working on a campaign out here in Tennessee's 7 special election where we're running an independent candidate, John Thorpe, Jonthorp, if I spelt that right. And he's running as an independent. And we want people like that, working class people, to represent their constituencies and kind
Right.
of break this national political ideology that's kind of hurting us. Because two-party control is just by the donors and the corporations. But democracy was supposed to be about a bunch of people who represent a smaller group of people coming together to solve problems. That's kind of
Well,
our philosophy.
I think when you posed it that way, now it makes more sense, and I more I agree with that almost 100%.
Yeah, we do. I do as well. Now, the INC, you call it, right? So, how many supporters do you have of the INC? How many people have signed on in some form or fashion, or follow you on a regular basis?
So for legal reasons, right now, the way the INC is set up, it was set up as a super PAC to help raise money to support independent candidates. Because I'm working on a campaign right now, I technically needed to de-associate with them. I left my executive director behind to run it, so I don't know where we're at over the last 6 months since I left. But essentially, what it's trying to do and what it has been able to do is not be like a organization with members, but be kind of the behind the scenes
Facilitator.
tentacle. Yeah, I think there's 3 different movements in what I would call the independent movement. There's the election reform space, like open primaries, ranked choice voting, those types of groups. Then you have the candidate reform space, like the Forward Party, trying to get different candidates, all these smaller groups, Unite New York, Unite Michigan, all those types of groups. And then you have like the bridging movement, like the Braver Angels, the Civic Nations, the people that are trying to depolarize. But there was nobody really organizing those groups laterally. So that's kind of the idea of the INC, to just be a facilitator, like you said, TK.
Okay. All right. I'm all a supporter of any of that, right? I think that, and I am an idealist as well, and I have very grand ambitions for America, just like the INC probably does. My only contention would be, it sounds like if I took as an example, you take the Convention of States organization that would want to have the Convention of States gather to obviously have 34 states to change the Constitution, right?
Yeah.
So the problem with that organization, which I believe is probably much bigger than the INC, since I've never heard of the INC.
Probably. Yeah, absolutely.
But just like that organization, they started in 2014, and they basically barely have a heartbeat, right? And the first thing you go to their website is they want money. And the second thing is, if you look at their board of directors and the people associated with their group, they're just former career politicians, right? So it's like 11 years now. It's not going anywhere. And there's no face of it, right? There's no voice and there's no face. And the fact of the matter is, human beings, humanity, for better or for worse, they want a leader. They want someone to follow. Like, you can't just have these opaque organizations that don't have true leadership. They never seem to work. So while I would wish you the best of luck, and I would hope it would somehow, I could be wrong, nothing like that seems possible. Like, we live in a world of social media. And if someone is ever going to rise up, or a group of people, it has to come through constant messaging every day for years and years, and continuing to communicate with their community and building a movement. You could say the same thing happened with Trump and MAGA, obviously for not good reasons, but he had a voice and he kept using that voice and being the loudest guy in the room. And he ended up getting supporters, and they took over the Republican Party, right?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I agree. People follow people, and we need a purpose. And that's what I think the difference, some of these groups, like you said, they're so stale and they don't know what they're doing. The way we're being a little different is that we're not thinking about this as building power. We're thinking about this as denying power. So our logic is essentially, simple in a way that for 2026, for the midterms, we are attempting to run enough independent candidates for House and Senate seats, not to create a majority, but to deny both political parties a majority. The logic there is if you elect what we call a fulcrum caucus, a small group of people that denies strategically both political parties, you could potentially elect an independent to the Speaker of the House.
But
If
you
you
don't
do
have to have
that-
a majority. Like it's a winner take all. States are electoral votes and elections are winner take all, right? So you don't need a majority in most states or in all states.
Exactly. So in the Tennessee 7 special election, the primary just happened the other day. So, for basic math, if John Thorpe, the independent, gets 34% of the vote and the other two get 33, John Thorpe, the independent, goes to Congress on
Right.
December 2nd, 2025.
Right. Happened
So
a lot in
we
the
don't need a
1800s.
majority. Exactly. And when you look at, Gallup polling right now, 43% of people self-identify as an independent. So all we're asking people to do is if there is an independent on your ballot in 2025 or 2026, there's nothing that can go wrong if you do that. We're literally at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to, optimizing our political system. Why not try something else? Clearly, this isn't a self-correcting system. And I think if we can convince enough people just to give an independent candidate a chance, and obviously there are crazy ones out there, but there are crazy Democrats and crazy Republicans on ballots all the time. Vet your constituents, vet your people, but if it's going to be a 50-50 toss-up between a party politician and an independent rep, it's worth a shot.
Yeah,
It's the definition of insanity, right, TK?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you're doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Like
Yeah.
at some point, the needle's got to get pushed. I mean,
Yeah, it's admirable, but again, as wishful thinking as I often am sometimes, it's not possible from a practical perspective because you don't have enough communication and you haven't built the movement yet. So you're right in theory, but in practice, it's beyond a long shot. But I mean,
that's fair. I mean, there are 4 Senate candidates now running for, or there are 4 independent Senate candidates now running and 44 House candidates that we've recruited to run. So it's all it takes is the possibility. But
yeah, but you had the Green Party as well, right? Yeah, it's admirable, and you should absolutely continue to do it because you never know what transpires, and you have maybe one leader that stands up and is great on social media and is able to gather a voice for the rest of the people, right? You never know what can happen, and you should continue it. But yeah, good luck because I know, of course.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks for joining.
well,
Appreciate the time.
Austin. My name's Austin too, so I like your name.
I didn't disconnect them yet, but now I did because I didn't hear anything else. Okay. All right. So why do you vote red or blue? And would you vote independent or third party if they could win? Join me and take the poll, but there's no poll. So my apologies, Mr. Global. I did make you a moderator. I don't know if you can create a poll, but you have to be careful because it only allows 50 characters. So it's actually not going to be something you're going to be able to do quickly. Maybe we'll organize offline for the next.
Yeah.
We'll do this again in the future.
Absolutely.
All right. So anyway, so those of you that are still here, would you vote blue or red? Does anyone else want to jump into the box and join as a guest and say, it's interesting with the last guest is it sounds, I don't know how to say this, like it's very admirable. I know it's ambitious, but what I'm trying to do and we're trying to do is also very wildly ambitious, right? But it's sort of like what I think Rick said the other day, not trying to put the cart before the horse. I think you have to have the people first, and then you can, you have to have the support first, and then you can organize something versus it's sort of like creating a company. You see, everyone has done this. When you start your own self business, especially when you're young, the first thing you do is, I'm going to create a business. And they don't know the difference between creating a business and what's a corporation. So the first thing you do is you go and to your Secretary of State and you form an LLC, and then you get business cards made up, and then you go buy a bunch of stuff. And you're like, okay, I started a business. No, you didn't start a business. You just did all the administrative stuff to create a company and to create some legality. Have a business once you actually have someone that's paying you for a service or a product. And then you have a business. Once there's revenue actually hitting the ground, that's a business, right? And when it comes to this sort of thing, if you truly want to have the possibility someday, if a third party could win or independents could win, the business in this case, or this example, would be that you first have to have the masses of people that are saying, raise their hands. Yes, I would do this, but I'm not going to do this because I'm not going to throw away my vote until I know that it's likely and highly plausible. Otherwise, I'm not going to throw away my vote.
Right.
Right. Just like we talked about creating, if we had a party, what would that party name be? Well, it's like that's putting the cart way before the horse.
That's true. I don't know. I don't know if you're a religious man, but I think that God would certainly help out in certain situations like that, right? Like if everybody got to the point where they were just so fed up with everything, it can all come together at the snap of a finger, right? Sometimes it can be kind of a spur of the moment thing.
I don't even know how to respond to that.
Well, I don't know. I'm just in my mind.
You
I'm
mean if
kinda,
enough people had enough faith, is that where you're going towards?
yeah, I
Yeah.
guess maybe faith or just, I don't know. There's a lot of things that have to come together, right?
Yep.
And maybe it's not necessarily we need to focus on one single thing, but maybe you're more on point with just getting enough people to be like, this is the route that we want to go.
Yeah, I think everything else is just wasted time and energies potentially, right? Like you first got to know is your market, like if you're creating a business, is there a large enough market? Just because we think there's a large enough market, even if you know there's a large enough market, you still have to get that messaging out there to that market. Sort of the
Right.
saying, always be selling, right? You have to be selling. Sometimes people even create companies, they don't even have a product yet, and they start selling it before they even built it, right?
Yeah, they get crowdfunding.
Yeah, they get crowdfunding because that's the perfect way to say, like, oh, is there enough demand for me to go through with this? Because what most people do is they build the product, they spend all this time and effort, and they open the doors and no one's there.
Yeah, that's a scary feeling
Yeah, not only
when
scary
you
as,
have
boy, you wasted a lot of time. That makes you think twice before you do it again.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, it's
Right.
interesting too, though, because like even it's different for each market, right? Like one business in a certain area of the country may be successful, wildly successful, but then in another area it may not be. So yeah,
Yeah. Jules says I voted for Nader, but Bush Jr. wasn't my fault. That's good. DM, how do you go against corporate money? Good question. I have a plan for that, DM. It's up there if you could see it. It's tinyurl.com/TK Civics plan. It's, people always talk about money first. It's sort of like the business analogy. You don't actually have to have money first. You just have to become relevant, and you have to have enough voice. And you don't necessarily need money for that. Like, how much money did Trump spend getting his message out? None, certainly none of his own. He just kept talking to the media and tweeting and now social truthing, right? So that was his. So I think money is eventually quite important, but ultimately you don't need money, you need people, and usually you need money to get people, but it's not necessarily true. It makes it harder. So, and again, how do you go against corporate money? Is first you build relevancy. And once you have enough people, then if you need money, you could raise money to get on the ballots and other things and recruit people. There will be some money certainly needed. But in today's ecosystem of Twitter and TikTok and everything else, it shows, it's money doesn't always win elections. The most money doesn't win elections.
Well, Trump's always been a figure in American culture, right?
Yeah,
For years, decades before I was even born, and his name and his father, and
right.
it's been something that they've been able to capitalize on, and they
Yeah.
certainly have done that.
Well, there's, you could also take all the social influencers, all of them. I guess Charlie Kirk's not a good example, but let's take the entertainers, the Mark Robers of the world, or the Mr. Beasts of the world. Is there's this democracy that's happened about becoming popular or becoming relevant has had very little to do with money. Now, in politics, it still has, but when you get Mr. Beast, that didn't come from money, and he was able to create, hundreds of millions of subscribers. Now he has relevancy, but it didn't take money for him to become relevant. So let's say if he was popular in politics, he would have a platform to be able to then start politics, and it wouldn't require money. Now,
Right.
it would require money to get on ballots and so forth, but it's not as much as people think it is. It is millions of dollars. But when you have millions and millions, tens of millions or hundreds of millions of followers, the ability to raise $10 million is not an issue.
I think the fear, though, or the perspective that I have on is it feels like the younger people, they get, as soon as they even hear the word politics, or that they hear about red versus blue or third party or all this stuff, I feel like in their mind they automatically shut off. They're not interested anymore, which is oftentimes why I've tried to think of other ways. You almost have to, like, almost, I don't know, and there's other creators that have talked about this online, that they feel like we're at a inflection point where we have to create something new. And but I'm not saying that's right or wrong. It just, I don't know how you gain or grasp the attention of the youth in
Yeah.
the traditional way.
Well, you know what? In the 60s and 70s, the youth were really involved in politics, right? I'm going to go to Jules in a minute. Jules, if you want to hop in the box and join, I'd love to hear your perspective. That has not been my experience. So I think you have something interesting to say if you want to say it as a guest instead of just through comments. Jump in the box and let me know. And then also today with Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro and Joe Rogan and many others, the young people are again interested in politics, but maybe for the wrong reason, maybe because of culture wars or their state. But it seems like, they reached a lot of people and they still continue to reach a lot of young men, particularly that they're reaching in politics. So I don't know if but they're obviously manipulating them in ways that are probably against their best interest.
Right.
Yeah. And Tiger Tail says it right there, 105, the youth is involved more now than ever. Maybe the 60s were big as well with the youth and Vietnam and so forth. But I think he's probably right. And that's why it's interesting about Gen Z. I think Gen Z in many aspects is being manipulated to go in the wrong direction. But like we always talk about, they're the most important generation when it comes to politics going forward anyway. So it seems like, California is going red. So that person sounds like he would only vote red. I really want to
And
know.
Tiger Tail.
Yeah, Tiger Tail, Rip Charlie, Clara. So who wants to answer the question and join as a guest? Would you vote or why do you vote red or blue only? And would you vote for independent or third party if they could win? Join me and take the poll, but we don't actually have the poll. It's my bad. I couldn't get the poll up. We have some people watching on YouTube as well. Random view brought here by the algorithm. What's good? This seems interesting. Thanks to War H Monger. I hope you're actually not a warmonger, but that's the username coming from YouTube. 100% culture wars. He makes a good point, though. Everything is about culture wars, right? Social and culture wars, all this nonsense between red versus blue, and then we get distracted. All right, so we have Eden Dunan joining as a guest. Let's see if...
Oh, wow.
What's up, Eden? How are you?
Hey, I'm well. How are you?
Good. So would you vote independent or third party if they could win, or not really?
Definitely yes. I am thoroughly disillusioned with both political parties.
Age, generation, and sounds like are you an American?
Yeah, definitely. I'm in Texas. I'm 31, and Yeah, I'm the like bottom end of millennials.
Right. You're the youngest of the, right around 29 to 31 is the youngest of millennials, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
So,
31 as well, so
Oh, hey, yeah. My
so
boss is a Gen X dude too. He's like ex-military Gen X guy, so I've hung out with somebody kind of in your same
yeah,
range.
it's nice to have the young millennials and Gen Z on here. We're getting more and more of those on these lives and watching my videos, which is awesome because again, nothing can really happen without your generations stepping up and sort of changing the world or changing this country. And my contention is always is that red or blue is just a pendulum swinging in a singular dimension, basically, right? And we need to do something different.
Yeah.
So how would your generation go about getting enough independence together, or people who, there are 75 million people who are not registered that are not registered with either party. And most people don't know that.
Yeah. That's a good question. Like one of the people I look at is I'm an electrician. I have an apprentice who is not very politically engaged. And something that's interesting about Trump is he's Hispanic. And something that's interesting about Trump is he's actually all of the things he's doing are and looking at that is motivating him to get political because he sees all these ICE raids going on and he says, "Wow, this is really messed up." And it's like a lot of people don't want to engage, and so actually in a way that's something kind of interesting. Other than that, I just like kind of talk to people and I'll say, hey, like I want people to be happy, and I because I meet people every day, I really just kind of engage and chat, um and try to kind of spread this anti corporate influence in politics. Like that's a strong message that I try to convey a lot.
Yeah, good on you for
I don't
doing
really
so.
know a whole lot what else to do beyond just like talking to people.
Yeah, it seems like, the most quietest group, the loudest groups are the ones that are the people who have the strongest views that are extreme on both sides. And those of us in the middle don't speak up loudly enough on a regular basis, right? Because we seem like there's no point, right? Because we don't want to engage with the hardcore red and we don't want to engage with the hardcore left. So we're just like, well, we throw our hands up in the air and say, well, let the chips fall where they may, because there's no representation for independence.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm probably more on the hardcore left, to be honest, but I definitely like not Democrats. They are just so in the corporate pocket by and large. So, yeah.
Right. Mr.
Anyway.
Mr. Global?
you you said you're more on like the hard left.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
In what ways do
oh,
you think?
universal health care, like probably a near 100% wealth tax on wealth over 100 million. Funnel that into education and like rebuilding the environment. I think like yeah, I'm like real into a lot of the like I think we should have government run manufacturing of a bunch of basic stuff like soap. It probably sounds crazy, but there's just a bunch of
You
things
know
like
what's
that.
interesting is I was thinking about stuff like this the other day, and I was like, how could you? I see where you're going.
You ever
So
wanted just a basic car anymore? Like just a
that's
simple,
something I thought about
Oh
too.
my
just
goodness.
have a standard.
We're going to go
There's
way off topic
15
here.
different breakers.
Yeah.
All right, we have tons of different breaker boxes. Why has that been redesigned so many times?
Why is
Why
the
do we have
door
30
handle?
ads
Why
for
is the
each
door handle
thing?
electric? Why can't we just have a normal door handle?
Right?
Why
You
do
can
we
just
have
make
so many different screw heads, Phillips, squares, star bits? Why can't we
some of
just
that is
pick
actually
one?
useful. But yeah, I do agree with you. Just because I'm in construction, I feel that.
Yeah.
But just anyway, I don't know how it would all work.
Well,
but
what's interesting is and sad is, because we had this discussion on a previous live about an hour or two ago, is when you say hard left, and it's kind of sad because I'm a fierce independent. I have some conservative fiscal responsibilities and progressive social values, and in healthcare for everybody is not hard left. Like that's ridiculous. And most people who suffer with health issues or are in rural areas and can't have health care, like you'll talk to most Republicans and, you know, most of them support Obamacare, right? And supported Obamacare after it was enacted, and they don't want it to go away like it's happening right now, right? But then, of course,
Yeah.
you go into areas about industries, like most industries or certain industries being run by corporations like soap, like your example of soap, which is interesting. And now you're starting to go towards really pretty far towards socialism, which, hey, that's your point of view. I think you have to respect the capitalistic system that we have, but make sure that we have the right regulations to protect society, right?
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is they can intermingle, right? Like you don't have to like outlaw soap manufacturing. You just have a government alternative that is
Right.
made like simply and cheap and is just like available. Honestly, and here in Texas we have HEB, and HEB does that with everything. They have like a company standard version of every product, and it's incredible. Honestly, it's great.
There's a guy in the chat right here, Rick. His name is Rick, and he's going to agree with a lot of things you're saying, I think.
Oh,
Rick is
no.
back. So Eden, I do appreciate your perspectives. Keep talking about independence winning, or you know, not winning, but having that it doesn't have to be this way, right? It doesn't have to be red or blue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks for joining. I got a couple people waiting, so I'm going to have them come in, and
Absolutely.
thanks for joining.
having me on.
And please follow, and you know, maybe someday we can do something about this.
I'm following you.
Great.
I'm gonna follow you, Eden.
Oh, by the way, and I always meant to mention this, if you haven't followed Mr. Global, he's a regular guest on the show. Please follow him as well. And let's see, we had some people that were ready to join, and where did they go? They drop out. So we lost some people that were going to join and give their points of view, I think. And I think they just lost one of them. So why do you vote red or blue? And would you vote for an independent or third party if they could win? And you can't take the poll since I don't have a poll. And of course, there's quite a few people watching on YouTube as well, it looks like, which is awesome. That keeps growing. I hate red and blue is a comment. I don't know about hate red or blue. You know, there's nothing inherently wrong with two parties. It ultimately gets that way, but the problem with the two-party system is that it's the money behind the two parties. That's really the biggest problem. So there's always going to be, whether you have a one-party system, zero-party system, or 10-party system, there's always going to be issues in politics with one or two parties or five parties. They all bring their unique set of challenges to the table. But you don't have to, the problem with our two-party system, as the last guest said, is it's a duopoly, and it's a duopoly that serves the special interests and the corporations. And that's what we would hope to someday love to solve. And that would be the goal of course, this channel here.
TK, I've got a question. And this could be, this might be a hot take, but what if there was an individual that came in and said, look, I'm going to be a dictator. I'm going to be an I'm an authoritarian, but I'm actually going to change things for the better. Like takes into account everybody's perspective as best that they can, and literally comes in and does all the things that everybody wants and fixes it and then backs off. Is that something that you would like, or that's something you wouldn't like?
Oh, in the theory, it would be, to some people, not me, it would sound like, oh, well, that's interesting. But that's what every authoritarian does. They're generally psychopaths or sociopaths that are trying to get power. I don't know. Rick would probably be able to tell us if there's anybody in history that's ever assumed power actually and then given up that power as an authoritarian in order to put in a better system. Like, I would love to know in history. I can't imagine that's ever happened. So the short answer to that is, in theory,
Scary.
yeah, it just sounds completely not feasible.
Right.
Oh, we got Jules joining. Awesome. Jules, you had some really good comments. So love to hear your perspective. Welcome, Jules.
Hi, thanks.
Yeah, let me just mention Mr. Global. So I guess at the end of the day, ultimate power always corrupts, Mr. Global, right? So once you are in power and you stay in power too long, you always become corrupted. I don't know if anyone has the moral integrity and aptitude to not end up leveraging that power for mischievous ways.
Right, malevolent
Malevolent.
things.
Jules, welcome.
Thanks. I was going to make that point actually about that discussion.
Oh,
that,
well, should I just boot you now? Thanks for joining. We'll see you later.
Yeah. Goodbye. Yeah, that I think it's impossible to have a benevolent authoritarian, because even if they go in with good intentions, I work in finance and accounting, and we have a saying that trust is not an internal control. So you have to have systems of laws and checks and balances.
And a microcosm would be sort of like the internal affairs for police departments, right? They're not external oversights; they're internal oversights, which is just destined to fail. It cannot work. Right?
Yes.
Now, are you what generation are you in? Would you vote red or blue, or do you consider yourself independent?
I consider myself a millennial, but I'm right on the cusp. I'm an elder millennial. And I have always voted blue, with the one exception of the time I voted for Nader in 2000. But I was registered as an independent almost my entire life until I changed my registration to Democrat to be able to vote for Bernie Sanders in the primaries.
How'd that work out?
Probably change it back. Yeah. I mean, I think we all know how that works out.
Yeah, that's shameful. I'm sorry for my sarcasm tonight, but I definitely am being a little bit snippy.
Yeah. So I voted green, blue, 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 blue. And the only reason I've ever voted blue is because I felt like I had to. The presidential election of 2000 was my very first opportunity to vote. And so I think that was a really interesting lesson, an interesting, object lesson in the Electoral College and what happens when you vote for a third party. I mean, that's really cynical, but, I don't know the ages of everybody in here, if people remember what happened in the presidential election of 2000, where Nader basically split the Democratic vote in specific states, and one of them being the state that I'm from, which is Oregon. But I was living and registered to vote in California at the time, so I felt okay voting for Nader. But I think it speaks really well to your prompt, that I knew he wasn't going to win the presidential election, but I wanted that third party to get him, the Green Party, to get enough percentage of the vote to be considered viable, so that people would start looking at third parties in a more realistic way, which, maybe that's too wide-eyed and naive. But
when we're desperate and we're looking for something different, even if it's naive, it's something, right? It's trying, because you never know what does happen.
But that's kind of exactly, I mean, I was young when Perot ran, but I feel like the same thing happened, with Perot splitting the conservative vote, if memory serves, which is why they say Clinton, well, my grandpa was a huge Perot fan, and that's why he said Clinton got into office, because Perot split the vote. I think Clinton got into office because, it's the economy, stupid, that whole thing.
Right, probably right. I voted for actually Ross Perot back in '92, and very much why you.
Did you?
Very much why you voted for Nader, most likely for the same reason. Although he actually, at the time, seemed like he had a real opportunity to win for a period of time, but then that all fell apart.
Nader or Perot?
Perot.
Perot
Got 20 million votes in 1992, and he was polling at 39% in the summer beforehand. So that's sort of the one. Nader's a good example as well, but I always go back to Perot because that showed that it could have happened. Not that it was close to happening, but it actually showed that it was really could have happened.
Yeah. I didn't realize that he'd done that well. I know Nader didn't even get onto the debate stage, really. But I remember when Perot debated with I don't remember who Clinton ran against with Perot, but
Yeah, 39% of the
Bush
polling in the
Senior.
summer.
Bush Senior. Yeah.
Bush Senior and Clinton. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but no, you're right. That is a good example, but it seems like it's the ability for a third party to run and do well is closing. You know, it's as time goes on, it seems like it's getting
Well,
worse.
you know,
but
I always thought
I like Nader. You know, his big thing was getting corporate money out of politics,
right.
and I really appreciated that about his platform.
Yeah, I think too bad that someone like that was a little not likable. Nader was likable, but he wasn't brash enough or loud enough or whatever you might want to call it to really get people to follow him strongly enough, right? And you can almost say the same thing about Bernie, but Bernie's so relatable to so many people that he has a certain way about him that people appreciate. So we got John in here as well. I just want to welcome John. I'm trying this something new, having more people in here because I think it makes the conversation sometimes more interesting as long as everybody's civil about it. Welcome, John.
Hello. Well, I've only listened to a little bit of your conversation, but I would say that.
What generation are you, by the way?
Millennial. I'm 29.
Okay, so right on the cusp, Gen Z, millennial.
Right. Yeah.
Awesome.
Right on the cusp, I would say. The problem is that both the main parties have lost their way as far as what it means to be part of that party. And so that's why the need for a third party would seem beneficial. But also the issue is if they can't express a good way of having foundational ideas themselves, then it won't attract anybody anywhere and people get more lost. That's like literally that's what it means when you pull votes from one party or the other. It's those people who understand that maybe that party isn't both parties, the main parties, Democrat and Republican, aren't representing my views. And so I'm going to throw it to another ideological camp that maybe has more of their shit together, in lack of a better word. That's why people are drawn to Bernie because yeah, his views are extreme in reference to like the classical Democrat Party, but he says them clearly and concisely and gives people a smooth, straightforward path to choose from. It doesn't feel like they're lost or they don't. They know exactly what they're voting for when they vote for it. Is what I would say.
I just always use the word because a lot of people do when you talk about Bernie, for example, wanting people to be taxed fairly, meaning billionaires and corporations. And a lot of people have to qualify that with the word extreme. You sound how ridiculous. And I'm not attacking you, by the way. Like it's so ridiculous that we have to refer to taxing billionaires fairly as an extreme stance. It's so ridiculous.
No, I would say like in some. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jules. I won't interrupt you.
Oh, I was just agreeing. That's all.
Oh, okay. Well, I would slightly disagree. I would say that I don't mean it in the context of like one thing that he says. I'm sure, he does say.
What's the other thing? Healthcare?
Well, yeah, he wants universal basic health care. He wants.
Okay.
He's talked about universal basic income. He's talked about using taxation as a mechanism in order to equalize wealth disparities between people. And if you actually read the foundational documents of the Constitution, it flies in the face of what the country was founded on. And so, I'm just talking. Let me clarify. I'm not like crapping on Bernie. I'm just saying, like, from a foundational, like Jeffersonian Republican view, it flies in the face of the Constitution, and that's what I mean by extreme. I mean extreme as like diverging from the foundation of what our country was built on.
Do you consider yourself to be a conservative?
I wouldn't say I'm part of the Republican Party, but I would say I'm like more so like Jeffersonian Republican. I would say I'm more conservative than the Republicans.
Okay, that makes sense. Because I was gonna say, well, because I disagree because I think that the purpose of taxes is wealth redistribution. But then I was like, oh wait, I gotta check myself. That's actually a very, you know, more liberal, like leftist ideology. Whereas, yeah, like, okay, because I'm guessing then you believe the purpose of taxes is to pay for things like military infrastructure, yada yada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and if you actually look at, like, say you read Adam Smith and The Wealth of Nations, or you read
Yes.
Ludwig von Mises, The Theory of Money and Credit. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Or even actually, I read Henry Ford's book, his memoirs, and what really kind of clicked the way I think is when he's talking about his production plants and doing the factories for his cars. He
Mhm.
says, I'm not trying to build wealth, right? So you have the, I'll kind of go on a rant here. Like when in Adam Smith, you have the distribution of labor, okay? So you have like a nailer. So if I were to take the steel and pound the heads of the nails and then pound the tips and, you know, package them all by myself, I could maybe make like 200 nails in a day. But if I distribute that labor where one person does the heads of the nails, one person does the tips, one person does the packaging, and they get really good at those different types of things, then us together can make, you know, 1,000 nails each a day. That's the distribution of labor. And so
That was Ford, not Smith, but
that was Adam Smith. That was his, literally in the first chapter of his book, he talks about a nailer and the distribution of labor.
Okay.
But Henry Ford had the same idea. And so you like to think about building wealth like, oh, I have more of something. I have more money. I have more consumable products that I can use. But Henry Ford thought about it in the opposite way. He said, if I have $10, more wealth means cheaper items. So if I can buy more things with the same amount of money, that's wealth. Not if I have more money, I can buy more things. And I think that's like a hugely different distinction. It almost sounds like the same exact thing, but it's completely different. So if you think, how can we make, and that's literally what capitalism does, is it takes the same amount of goods with the same amount of energy you can get with providing the same amount of money. You know, a person can only expend a certain amount of money or energy to make a certain amount of money, and allows you to buy more because they're cheaper. And by taxing things, you are making them more expensive and therefore decreasing the purchasing power of everybody, and therefore decreasing their
Okay,
purchasing
that also
power.
sounds like
Yeah, go ahead.
that's a very also somewhat libertarian view to think that taxation is increasing prices. That's like comes right out of the corporate playbook. If we raise taxes, we have to charge you more money. Like, it's so absurd. Taxation is supposed to help the society that comes back and prevent people from becoming too powerful and too rich, and or not even that. Let's get back. Fair taxation, the system that allows you to become rich in capitalism. You are basically it's a privilege to be able to create a company and exploit the labor to grow and become wealthy. And that system, you should be paying back into that system. And that system, that taxation is not redistributing wealth to people. It's giving the government money to fund infrastructure and education and potentially healthcare and literally everything around you. The water that you drink, making sure it's not polluted. The air that you breathe, making sure it's not polluted. That's helping society, right? So
I completely agree. I completely agree that if we do have a wealth disparity, that we should have not, a flat tax on everybody.
the flat tax is absurd.
But the distinction is the radical idea, I would say, is we are going to use taxes as a weapon to hurt people we deem arbitrarily.
Let Jules go. Let's have Jules go.
It's not a weapon, it's a market intervention. It's a tool.
It's a regulation
that the government can use. Because yes, we would love to have free markets, right? We would love for the invisible hand to control capitalism and make things right. In theory, that's how it works. But in reality, there are market failures and so the government must intervene to prevent those market failures to keep markets free. like monopolies, right? And trust busting, things like that. Those are other types of market interventions. Taxation is one type of government intervention in the market.
But yeah, I agree. Yeah, generally and broadly, if you apply those things generally and broadly and not try and intervene in certain sectors, you're okay. But the moment a government official or a group of government officials get together and say that we know how the market works better than the market and we can tax certain sectors more than others, that's when you run into trouble and you cause more problems than if you would have just
So
left them
what
to
what
their
is
own
it when?
devices.
Like what?
Yeah, good point.
No.
Like what?
Sorry, Holmes.
Okay, so the perfect is green energy, the energy sector.
Mm-hmm.
So you get oil, coal, and natural gas, and you have a group of politicians saying we are going to tax and fee and regulate the fossil fuel industry
Mm-hmm.
in order to reach an end, and our end is to get rid of they're using taxation regulation
Right.
as a vehicle to diminish fossil fuel and those types of things.
For
Yes.
for what
Well,
purpose?
But then you see the impact economically through inflation. The cost of gas goes up. Well, what is the cost of gas going up? That increases every single food product that travels by truck,
Mhm.
train, and everything else. And the far-reaching economic consequences were hardly thought of. They're just after one goal, and they sacrifice it at the
What one
expense
goal
of
do
the
you think
people.
they're after?
What was that?
What one goal do you think they're after?
They truly believe, and I believe they believe it, that if we don't do it, the Earth is going to end in 100 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, even if the Earth isn't going to end in 100 years, or they don't think that the Earth is going to end in 100 years, it's again, it's a market intervention to reduce the externality of a certain type of energy, right? So the pollution that comes from like dirty fuels, right? Burning coal, oil, those types of things. Are you familiar with the concept of an externality?
Go ahead and explain it in case you
Okay.
think it's something different than I do.
It's a cost that is borne by society, or actors outside of the firm, that that's it. It's a cost that's borne outside of the firm that is not necessarily accounted for, so it has to be accounted for and rectified through this market intervention. So that cost, like you said, the cost of fuel goes up, the cost of distributing goods goes up, etc. But those can also be offset by incentivizing clean types of energy, and that's the other side of that plan. But we're having a heck of a time getting it passed, right? Because there's just so many differences of opinion, and it's become kind of part of this culture war.
Yeah, but if you look at like the UN statistics, when the poorest part of the world uses the most amount, they pollute the most, right? They use wood to burn in their houses, and coal without filtration and all the other systems that we require in our coal fire plants here in the U.S.
Because they don't
And
have
so when you
because
make
they don't have
energy more
government
expensive-
regulations, right? They don't have the money.
But you're by increasing the cost of cheap fuels, you're actually pushing down the poor, and then they use those fuels more than they would have if they were to industrialize their economy like we did in the Industrial Revolution and go through that phase of economic building. And so you end up saying, oh, well, we're going to, the U.S., we decreased our pollutants. But then you look at, India and Africa and maybe some other poor nations in South America, and they end up putting more, because their economy's been depreciated because fuel costs have gone up. They end up polluting more than we would have ever saved ourselves by doing the clean energy in the first place. in the U.S.
Mhm.
I'm not following. Why does their consumption go up because ours goes down?
No, we're increasing the cost, which makes them poor, quote unquote, which makes them rely on dirtier fuels.
Because they
Than
can't afford it.
right,
And
'cause they
we're
can't
we're
afford it.
increasing the cost. We're increasing the cost by taxing it internally.
I think he's talking about those other places specifically, not here.
Well, yeah, well, our consumption, we import, most of our, well, not most, I don't know the percentage, but we import a lot of our coal and oil
We're
from our
completely
bottom.
self-sufficient if we want to be. The United States.
Well, we could be completely self-sufficient.
No,
yeah.
we are, in theory, we are actually ours just because of the way refineries work and so forth. Is that some of the oil we refine here, we can't, we refine certain types of oil and that gets exported, but we produce more than enough of our own energy. Now, but the point is, I think we're getting way off course here.
Yeah,
Government's government's role is, and it doesn't always do it well, is if you have a democracy and the representation is supposed to represent the people, the government's role is to invest in its society, protect its society, and also invest in its society. So if you're investing in the inevitable that there may not be fossil fuels, and you have to start to incentivize a new industry to rise up. It's happened time and time again, and it's been many times very successful and sometimes not so successful. So if you want to invest in a future, like you could say a lot of authoritarians have done, like China has been doing, investing in its future and subsidizing all types of things so that it can survive in the future. You can take the same thing with Saudi Arabia and buying all the sports teams, being involved in professional sports all over the globe because they know that oil eventually is going to run out and that is their source of revenue and they're trying to diversify now. So that is an investment that they are making. And when we invest in clean energy, we're doing two things. We're investing in the inevitable that there may not be fossil fuels, and we're also saying we want to protect our environment. And if it's done well and it's actually representing society, this is a good thing. So when Trump says windmills are terrible, like, what is he talking about? Like, it's such a beautiful form of clean energy and it invests in our future. And when you invest in people's health, like if you had health care, again, you're investing in their health so they can continue to be healthy and pay their taxes. If you wanted to invest in education, you're investing in your youth to be educated so that they can have higher earning jobs later, which means paying more back in taxes. Like, these are all fundamental government things that, if done properly, and I'm not saying they are done properly all the time, you should think about government differently because it's the only mechanism we have to move society forward and invest in your society.
Yeah, I would. Not to be frank, I would completely disagree.
Okay.
I would say let me kind of explain. I'm not
No,
just gonna say-
we've gone on too long already, off topic. So I said my piece. I appreciate you being here, John. I don't agree with a lot of the fundamental things you're saying. And in my view, it's not sort of an independent view. It's very much sort of an anti-government view.
No, look at my name, John Locke. Okay, where does Constitution come from? The state of nature, and it's individuals who have natural laws who constitute and supplant those rights into a constitution and then live by the government that they form together as a collective. That's why it's called a commonwealth.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that the government, say with an economic urban development project, which is ran by the people as individuals, could know more than the individuals themselves is flawed logic, in my opinion, and would be flawed logic to the founders of the Constitution.
All right. Well, thanks for your viewpoint. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Cheers.
Thanks.
All right, Jules.
John Locke, he's a philosopher.
Yeah, it goes a little too, I like to keep things a little bit more straightforward and simple.
He seems to know what he's talking about. He convinced me, you know?
Well, he's certainly read some books that maybe he's gone a little bit too far in the deep end and gone too far into philosophy and away from reality.
He's still in that rabbit hole. He hasn't built the ladder to get out yet.
Yeah. What do you think, Jules?
Um, I don't know. I don't know about the rabbit hole, but I definitely agree with you that yeah, his views are definitely anti government, which I hear a lot of that lately.
Lately,
You know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever I start to hear anti-government, you just realize the manipulation and the poison of the mind, like to realize like there's nothing else. What is there other than government? Like once we lose government, there's chaos, right? And anti-government views we've all been sort of manipulated over our entire lives to believe government is the problem and not the solution, and especially on the right. And there has to be a balance, right? It has to be a balance.
Yeah, I mean, with the loss of government, a lot of people will hurt and starve and be in pain. I mean, I've worked for nonprofits for the last 15 years, and we're mostly funded by the government, and rely a lot on Medicare, Medicaid, and nonprofit funding. I mean, sorry, government funding to do the work that we do. So I have a particular insight to that, how much we need the government for social safety nets. And that's why I'm particularly connected with Bernie Sanders' messages, because I think we need to strengthen our social safety nets, and we seem to be drifting the other direction.
Right. There's a good comment here from someone on YouTube. It says, I don't think he's anti-government. He probably would agree that the primary role of the federal government is for national defense. Maybe that's where he was thinking. I think that's a good comment. Stark Knight. That's a good comment. It can't be just for national defense, right? It has to be, from that is obviously one of the most important aspects is protecting your society, and that it does require a strong national defense. I would say on a big scale, so some people don't realize, especially when it comes to the United States and the current world order, people don't understand, in terms of the role of historically since World War II, is that we are the most influential power in the world. We have the greatest wealth in theory, or the greatest amount of wealth, and we have the greatest power. And we've used that power to set, not always perfectly, not far from it, a set of values of self-determination, self-rule, and we've also set up the current world order of free trade and globalism, all things that have tremendously benefited all Americans for the most part. And now we're saying that there's people out there that are anti-government, and like what's happening with this current administration is that we are moving away from globalism for the rules that we set up. Like we set up the entire playbook, and the entire game board was set up by us and our allies in order to promote democracy, promote self-rule, and to prevent authoritarianship and fascism and communism from expanding. And now we want to say that with great power does not come great responsibility. And I just find it to be absurd that any American that has, whether they know it or not, has benefited greatly from this world order. And not just Americans, but the entire free world has benefited tremendously from the values-based order that we are continuing trying to experiment with and improve upon. So the anti-government, I know it's long-winded, but I just don't get the anti-American or anti-government role. They want us to recoil into isolationism and have a smaller government and being less involved and give less money away to other countries. That money that we give in aid comes back to us 1,000-fold in the influence that we get in those countries.
Mm-hmm.
I think personally, maybe the perspective could be that I think a lot of us just know that something's not right internally with what we've got going on, and that we kind of just need to pump the brakes and actually figure some stuff out before we keep barreling this train towards a cliff. So it's not necessarily isolationism that I think maybe is going on, but more or less just hang on a second here. What are we doing? Where are we going? And how are we getting there?
But it's still like we always talk about. It always comes back to the corruption by special interest corporations and billionaires. If we just literally had representation for the people by the people, like the vision was supposed to be, or
Correct.
even though we've always had, a wealthy class, or even you could say a ruling class in some respects, all of it comes back to that, right? Every issue that we're arguing about, because we always go down this rabbit hole of talking about individual issues instead of
Right.
always pointing up. So we got someone new on the line. Haitian, welcome. And Jules, you're welcome to stay on. We're happy to have you here. You have great feedback as well. But if you drop out at any time too, I understand.
Okay. Yeah, I actually do have to drop off. I gotta go. But thank you so much for having me on. This was a stimulating conversation, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jules.
See you, Jules.
Bye bye.
Hi.
Okay, Haitian, I can't see your full username, but welcome. So
Yeah,
let's see if we can get back on topic, unless you think you really want to talk about something that's succinct about what we were talking about. Otherwise, I would like to know, number one, what generation are you? And number two, are you only going to vote red or blue? Or if there were enough people, would you vote for an independent or third party?
I'm Haitian, and then I vote blue, I vote red. Independent would be the ideal. I'm not stick to either one. I don't have to be blue or red.
You're Haitian. Are you living in the United States or are you living
Yes,
in Haiti?
yes. Yeah, I'm living in the United States.
Okay. So you're eligible to vote though?
Yeah, I've been voting.
Okay, very good. So you
I've
voted,
been voting.
if I understood right, blue and red, but ideally you would
Most
like,
of the time, most of the time blue.
okay.
Most
And
of the time blue. But I live in the red district, so
okay, and ideally you would like to vote independent if such a thing existed.
independent. Yeah. If that exists, yeah, I would.
Yeah. And
But
what,
I'm registered as independent.
okay, very good.
Mhm.
So would you say that corruption in our government is the number one issue, or is there something that's more important to you?
But usually in all government, and this is I wanted to join the conversation, is this I hear that a lot. I don't know if it's on the right or is the media. It's like government is a bad thing. And the idea created government in the first place is to level things for society. And I think a lot of people miss the role of government in society. Because
Yes.
without government, I don't know how we would even make it.
Right. It's to have a level playing field, right? So no
Exactly.
matter
To have a
where,
level
what zip
playing
code you're
field.
born in, what race you're born
Exactly.
in, you have a chance.
So this is the role of government. The government is just to have everybody under the umbrella, so everybody can get a piece under the umbrella. So it's not like government is just so bad we cannot have. Without government, a lot of us wouldn't exist.
Government is pretty simple, isn't it? So if you have bad people in government, you'll have bad government. If you put
This is the
people,
problem.
if
This
you,
is the problem.
yeah,
This is why we have the law in place to level things. When you go too far, that either you're illegal or to pull you back. So this is the role of government, is just to be the judge, to have the level field, just like to level it for everybody. And like the other guy was talking, the problem is not with capitalism. It just make a lot of folks just too greedy. We all don't have the same opportunity. We all don't have the same access when we should have access. We all can be rich.
yes,
So
opportunity, right? That's one of the fundamental
exactly,
principles is the
this is the
opportunity.
principle. So we want government just to straight it out, just like to say, hey, just like in the forest, the biggest animal won the whole forest. But government just want it for everybody. Everybody can find water, everybody can find food, find job. And when you do work for somebody, they don't abuse you. They pay you fairly. It
Right.
goes the same when you go in the and for insurance. Just government make sure everybody get the care they need. You don't have to cost you a fortune to make it. This is government only that can do that. Because if you want it by an individual, like by a corporation, this is why it's so expensive. Nobody can afford it. Even hospital get in the market.
Right.
But if you have a fair government, they will know it. Hey, you can make profit, but it can be not so much where nobody can get it.
Right. Well, if you haven't followed me before, I'd ask you to please follow. And we're trying to do here is to eventually someday in the if it could ever happen, is raise enough awareness to get enough people to realize if you wanted to change government for the better to represent the people for the people, that it's going to take something dramatic versus just voting blue or red.
Well, I did follow you, and I've watched your show few
Awesome.
times, and then I've seen it.
Welcome. Well,
Even though the hope is very little, because here in America, uh, the idea of having a third party, I don't think it's a bad thing at all. At least you have the choice.
that's right. And you need
Because we live in
disruption.
exactly,
You could
exactly.
potentially go back to as two parties, but after you fix the Constitution or amend the Constitution to eliminate the money in politics, and
Yes,
then there's nothing inherently wrong with two parties. I mean, there are some things inherently wrong with it, but it's more the corruption, and you need a disruption phase to obviously, just like I said, disrupt those both parties, and then maybe something else could form behind it.
exactly. But
Well, thanks for joining, Haitian. Appreciate it.
all right, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll join again. All
Cool.
right.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
All right. So we had a few good comments on YouTube as well. The only thing that would change my mind is Trump. He single-handed shifted. I don't want to read that comment right now. We have another guest that's waiting. I think this is, I don't know what we're going to get here, Mr. Short username. Let's see what this individual thinks. Welcome, X.
Hey, we spoke once before.
I thought so. How do you have a username that just says X?
What do you mean by that?
Do they have unique usernames on TikTok where no one else could have?
This is like my name as opposed to my username. It's not my @ symbol.
Oh,
it's just
gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. All right. So, what are your thoughts on the particular prompt today?
Well, really, I just wanted to go back on what the last guest was talking about, and he said, corporations and companies, etc., should be able to make profit, but a reasonable amount of profit. And my view on this, I consider myself a businessman, and I've always thought like that, and it's kind of been changing for me in the last year or so. But really, I still do believe the thing that makes America beautiful is that corporations don't have souls, right? So it's in the last 10, 20 years, it's gotten to the point where it's like, yes, everyone should be extremely empathetic, etc. Corporations and political parties, for that matter, don't have a soul inherently, right? So every corporation in America, the number one goal is to make as much money as possible and return value to shareholders.
Mhm.
And it's very difficult, and to get to the prompt, it's very difficult to say, all right, well, let's create a political party that genuinely has a soul, because like by definition, an entity, whether that be a corporation or a political party, etc., they don't have a soul. They just want to further how do I say this? Yeah, well, you can say for corporations, the only thing that they're meant to do is return value to shareholders, and that's it, right? So I mean,
That's their
the
fiduciary
whole
responsibility. True.
yeah. So I mean, like anytime you see a company doing PR, like it's all BS to just appeal to their customers or their potential customer base. It's not because that entity inherently has a duty to do something right. Sure, like the people in charge may want to do something right, but at the end of the day, like you said, it's their fiduciary responsibility to return value to shareholders in whatever means necessary that is lawful.
Right. That's true. I would agree with that. So I disagree with the last guest. If you're a corporation, unless you become a monopoly, and there's no, you obviously suffocate any potential competition. That's where government has to get involved. If you're a corporation, the beauty of capitalism is its supply and demand. And if you charge too much for something, there should be another competitor that can come up. The problem with that in its practicality and what's happening today is not that, if you would argue that corporations don't have a soul and they shouldn't be responsible to its society that actually helps them become successful, you could make that claim, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that, even though I think it's would be in their fiduciary long-term best interest to make sure that that society can continue to help them thrive. But the problem you have is that if you would make the same argument that government is inherently should be representing people and people only, not people only, but people first, it's society first, and corporations. So if government is representing the people first and foremost, obviously it has to take in economic conditions and so forth as well. But now you have corporations who have no soul, who are now overly influencing government, and government doesn't represent the people. This is where the problem comes in, right? You no longer have a balance or equilibrium because now you have the corporations having all the influence in government with no soul, as you say. And then, of course, society has no representation, and that's where everything falls apart.
It's a compounding effect.
Right. Because if society had a voice and government is supposed to regulate, when a company gets out of control or capitalism that's unchecked, then you have a failing society, right? You have dirty water, you have unclean air, you have no restrictions. And corporations will, like you said, because they're soulless, they will pollute the earth, they will pollute the air and so forth because they only care about making profit, right? Why clean up environmental things? They can just pollute the air, but the society is having to breathe that air, right? So there needs to be a clear separation between those organizations, meaning government that represents the people, and corporations. If you want to believe that companies should have no responsibility to its society, then you need strong regulations to make sure that they cannot be completely unfettered.
The
Yeah.
capitalist perspective, though, is that I guess the capitalists would say, well, you can still invest in our company. We'll give you shares so that you can make money off of, the profits. So while they're trying to, they're trying to, their shareholders, you said earlier, you know,
Yep.
their responsibility is their shareholders. Well, you can buy into our stock, and if we go up 30%, you can increase your income as well, you know? But then it's like, well, how does the person that's working at your place that's earning a wage that doesn't even allow them to survive, they can't even put money into your stock,
Right.
let alone pay for their rent, pay for a car, pay for healthcare? It just is like, anyways.
Yep.
I think it's really a multifaceted problem, right? Because you know, like I said, yeah, corporations don't have a soul, right? So there has to be some government intervention there to say, all right, well, you can't be the entity is purely motivated by profit, but there has to be some kind of regulation there to where you're not harming people. But it's very easy to go down the slippery slope of saying, okay, well, carbon equals bad. So
Right.
we won't use carbon, right? And it's like, okay, so then we're just done as a country. We're finished because we can't flip the switch and change to nuclear, which I think probably is the best long-term idea, right? That's probably what should happen. But you can't just flip a switch. So it's like, well, what's the right process to change from going from carbon to nuclear eventually, right? And it's like, yeah, it's a hard predicament, but the thing that you can't do is pass a law tomorrow that makes it extremely expensive for companies to use carbon, because then guess what, America's
Your
going
prices go up.
Of course. Right.
Yeah,
It's always a balance. Everything, the slippery slope argument can be applied to almost everything, right? And that's why you're supposed to have
Mhm.
reasonable compromise, right? You have to have compromise in everything. And that's actually winning. That's how you win as a society. And long-term longevity of a society and even of a capitalistic system has to rely on some balance and a lot of compromise to do the right things, right? And those compromises have to be adjusted from time to time. But you can make a gun control argument, a slippery slope by having federal background checks. Like, stop the nonsense with a slippery slope. The slippery slope is those things typically don't happen. There's more fear mongering than actual reality. If you have the proper representation. Like,
Sure.
they do it well in some
Very
European.
difficult to say. We're sorry, but we're going to make a compromise between Democrats and Republicans in the U.S., but nobody else in the world is willing to compromise on that issue. Nor do they have to, right? They have their autonomy. So it's very difficult to say. Let's make a compromise between no carbon and full carbon in the U.S. But everywhere else in the world is like, well, screw you guys. Carbon is fucking cheap, and I'm going to continue to use it and blow past you.
No,
because
but that's
you
why
guys
you have
compromise.
treaties, and when they come, what was the environmental treaty that X amount of countries entered into, but we didn't,
Yeah,
right?
the Green Deal or whatever the hell it
Right,
was.
right.
But
that's
I mean, you can say like China entered into it. They don't give a shit. They're not abiding by it.
no, they do actually, because as their society gets older and become more wealthier, they become a more mature society, and they actually have to go through the same things that we did in the 60s and 70s. Chinese cities used to be much more polluted than they are today because the society didn't want that anymore, right? So they go through the same cycles. They just may always be at the same level at the same time, and that's why there's a lot of pushback from various countries, right? They're not ready to do that because they have only carbon and they don't have wind or whatever it might be.
Until we wake up tomorrow and that supercomputer comes online and it's like, here's your solution to fusion power. And then we're all like, oh my God.
Right. All right. So thanks for joining, X. I'm going to have, there's another guest that's waiting or was. Yeah, Jumpy's in here as well. Thanks for your perspective and for joining again.
Yep. Have a good night.
Cheers. All right, Jumpy, you're up next. Let's see. There's the capital accumulation. There's a couple of nice comments on YouTube as well. Corporations should absolutely not be allowed to lobby. And that's where the problem comes in, right? Again, when corporations have all the influence, then nothing good happens for us. Oh, Laura Dunn, the birds hate the turbines. Let's see. Did he not join? Oh, Jumpy left. Okay, Jumpy left. Is there anyone else that wants to join in? I appreciate the people on YouTube that are watching. The guests can only come from TikTok, unfortunately, because they have the guest feature. YouTube does not. So I appreciate all the subscribers and the people watching on YouTube as well. That's starting to grow nicely. And I appreciate all the follows and the likes on TikTok as well, so that we can get more exposure when we're having these conversations. Even though, Mr. Global, what are your thoughts? How can we do a better job of staying on topic?
I don't know. I have this thought that, this happens often, and I'm wondering if maybe the answer is to not fight it. It seems like everybody wants their voice heard, and it should be.
Mhm.
And I feel like now is the time that I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like no one's voice is being heard. So I don't know. Maybe you have to pivot. I mean, I love the prompt. I think it's a good start, right? It kind of jumps the engine, but I don't know. Everybody's had pretty good, nice, cordial things to say. So
Yeah, I just wonder if when people are joining, people in the comments, and let me know, when people are joining, they see a prompt, but then they are jumping in halfway to a conversation that's totally unrelated. Like at
right.
what point we need to do maybe a better job of staying on topic. But like you said, some of these conversations move organically, and that's great too. But is it great for the people that are joining, right?
Sure. I hear you. Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe, yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah. Well, for those of you that are on YouTube or on TikTok, the reason this prompt was here today is because Mr. Global and I are trying to always take the pulse, right? We know there's 75 million independents technically out in the world, in the United States, that aren't affiliated with either party. So we're always trying to figure out a way, and we welcome everyone's thoughts on it. Maybe we should have a live just on that. Like, I don't know all the answers by any means, and I'm just trying to figure out how do we grow an audience large enough that says someday, in years from now, could there be enough people where there's starting to become a movement, like whether it's a Ralph Nader movement or a Ross Perot and the Reform Party, or maybe it's just that these conversations that we're having with people, that maybe someone else starts a channel, an account that it just is incredibly articulate and has a vision and maybe has certain relevancy already, whatever it may be. I don't care necessarily, other than obviously the only goal that I have is to, how do we figure out to eliminate corruption from politics or our political system by the corporations and billions? Because it seems like every issue, and maybe I don't do a good job at tying this back. When we get into these conversations, maybe we need to always tie it back to see, well, see, this is, if we fixed that, then we could fix that. Because I just feel
Right.
like we're always going on to issues and arguing about individual issues. And that's great. There's nothing really wrong with it, other than it's the same old thing that everybody else does.
I think I think though that it does have its benefits though, because I feel like individuals that come into a place that's, you know, they're not hearing people fight and bicker and going talking over each other. It can provide them with a sense of comfort and maybe a refreshing type of environment, and they'd be more likely to come back. And um, I think the overall future goal for it that you have, your vision, I am wondering though if this is the platform that cultivates that, or if it is truly just to socialize. But
Yeah, I guess it'll
it,
evolve.
it's
It'll evolve over time, right?
I think that's the thing, right?
Yeah. I want to just read a couple of comments from someone on YouTube. Jim Keogh, the left, because I think this is funny. So if you're watching on either one, the left's mandate is to tax the rich. MAGA's mandate is to prove the moon landing was faked. Well done, Jim Keogh. I enjoy that.
Did you see NASA had their little thing a couple weeks ago or a week ago? Did you see that at all?
No, I did not.
But one of the astronauts, I don't know if he was like head honcho or not. He's like, "Yeah, we're gonna go to the moon for the first time."
Oh,
And oh my gosh, did everybody catch on to that? They're like, "For the first time?"
did he deliver it with sarcasm? I would hope.
I no, it he did not.
I saw something about the woman astronaut that said something about, I don't know, she was sort of in a similar vein, that I just was like, well, it's 2025. It shouldn't be, yes, it's a really big deal, but it's like, it's not novel,
Sure.
right?
China allegedly is already up there mining helium-3.
Right. Oh, and Jim Keogh also said 75 million. Are you counting people under 18? Yeah, I think he's referring to independents. 75 million. It's roughly 75 million people. I'm not counting people under 18. Again, that's also funny. I think meant to be a joke. Invest more in education. People over profit. It's not that difficult. Yeah, we go into the rabbit's hole of some of these things when we're talking to people, but I try and want to always bring it back to something simple. Like Jim Keogh says, people over profit. It's not that difficult. Now, there has to be a balance, right? But people need to come first, just ahead of, we need to have a strong economy and lots of strong corporations. I'm not anti-corporation. I'm just anti-corporations that don't pay their darn fair share of taxes, right?
They have no soul.
They have no soul, right? Which I don't know if I necessarily agree with either. There was an inherent responsibility to your employees in the past, and there was more, connectivity to a social responsibility. Corporations, should they have in the United States? I guess this is a good question. Should corporations in the United States, should they have any social responsibilities? Because they do
That's
in Europe, very much so.
absolutely. Well, even with what I do, it's very small and, it's not a huge corporation by any means, but does my business have a soul? And it's, anything that goes wrong, anything that, if I'm not busy or if I'm really busy, or if somebody complains about something that I do, or if somebody says that I do something really great, you know, I feel that inside of me, even though it's not me, right? It's my EIN, it's my business.
But it's
You know,
not, right? I mean, it's really not. It's your credibility, it's your reputation. The business is you,
correct.
right?
Which is the ethos of many companies, right? A company has to create its ethos. Like what is your mission? What is your goal? What are you trying to provide? What are you trying to fix?
Yeah. And well, but then you have to argue. So now let's take a soulless company, which is like a Fortune 500 company. The CEO is just, their fiduciary responsibility is to only make profit. But what happens when it gets so far skewed that you can take United Healthcare and they were essentially unaliving people because they're denying coverage, right? So now, if it was an individual doing that, so corporations literally have more rights than individuals because
Mhm.
corporations can make decisions that unalive people and there is no consequences or accountability. And you can go back to 2008 and the 2008 crash too, when the finance industry, there was all types of fraud by hundreds, if not thousands of people that worked in the finance industry. But these were human beings making these fraudulent decisions about the housing market, right? And putting together AAA products that were not AAA, that they were, garbage mortgages and compressing them. And then they would get ratings saying they're A+ mortgages. And they would package those mortgages and sell them as, assets. That was all fraud, right? And again, these are corporations, so should they have no social responsibility? So they can literally have people within those companies could be doing fraudulent things and not be held accountable. Like not a single person went to jail in the 2008 financial collapse, right? And that affected and unalived tons of people because of economic
Right.
conditions, right? So should we really think of American corporations as having no soul and should they have no social responsibility? I would argue there has to be some. To just say there no social responsibility whatsoever sounds wrong.
It feels like a slap on the wrist, right? Like or it feels experimental, like they're able to use us as a guinea pig and not face any repercussions for decisions that they make.
Right. And this is the thing that they do in Europe. There's accountability at the corporate level to make sure these things don't happen. So they do have to answer to society. And then that is not a slippery slope, but that is moving more towards socialism. But really they're not socialism either. They're capital socialism that's just a little bit more people first, profits second. Why? And I think it's good for society because their CEOs can jump on a train and go to work every day on a train with normal people and no one makes a fuss. CEOs in this country are considered so evil because they're so wealthy and they do so many things that work against society that they have to be protected by swarms of security.
Yeah, so what is it is it Congress or is it uh, when they have their hearings, like when Mark Zuckerberg has to get up or when somebody is doing something bad and they have to answer to, I forget what they do. What is that called?
The
When they're what's that?
congressional hearings?
Yeah, is that what that is? Like when somebody, about Meta and about Facebook, did you know that your company was doing this? Did you, I guess isn't that couldn't that be considered oversight or at least trying to hold them accountable? Like they're obviously there for a reason.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Um, so I guess I'm trying to say is that we do have some sort of mechanism that's supposed to help that, right?
Yeah, but I would argue that smarter regulation and younger politicians that actually have, you have to, like when you have social media and it's media, it's literally media, right, these days, shouldn't they have some of the same rules and regulations? There has to be transparency. We can take AI, for instance, going into the AI world today. I just did a search on what happens when the threat of AI, when it's in the wealthiest hands of a few individuals, right? And the way you have to guard against regulations, you have to have antitrust enforcement to prevent any single entity dominance of AI, or in this case, social media, right? So you have to have antitrust enforcement. You might have to have transparency in audits. And these are rules and regulations that need to be enacted, just like we have an audit we're supposed to on the military and the CIA and whatever else may be. Right, right. You have to have some transparency on audits when you have so much power, wealth, and control of the narrative that government has to have some oversight of that, right? There could be digital right laws, so digital rights laws, and other things like. So it is a rabbit's hole, but that's the thing of government, right? That's why we have a big government that's supposed to have checks and balances on all facets of our lives, right?
Yeah, Trump, what was it? We're going to be the AI capital, the crypto capital, like in. I just feel like we are barreling down something that we have no idea what the consequences are.
That is absolutely. Things are happening faster than humans can cognitively understand it. Well, at least
Yeah,
politicians.
and then he's like, "Well, China, we don't want China to be the first ones." Well, what if it's their own crucifixion? Like, what if it's their own? They're going to do themselves in. They'll be the first guinea pig. That doesn't mean we have to go too.
Yeah.
Let
Well,
them try it.
we need to have a conversation on that, and hopefully people will join in the future about AI, because I think it's super important to talk about it, and it's blown away that how little attention it truly gets. Laura Dunn here says, Laura Dune, excuse me, Laura, is our population too large for reasonable governing? No, absolutely not. It's just, again, it's a people problem. It's not if you had people representing the people, it would always be somewhat inefficient, but it's not too big by any means. There are larger countries, not democracies. But all right, we got one more guest, Trace Burner. I know it's getting really late, so we'll take one more caller. Trace, welcome.
What's
Trace.
up, man? How's it going?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing fine.
So what are your thoughts? Are you vote red or blue? And what generation are you? Or do you vote independent? Well, no one can vote really independent. Well, you can, but you probably don't.
I don't know what generation I am. I'm 21.
Gen Z.
Gen Z, yeah. I vote blue. If I could vote third party, I would. But I guess you were asking, why do I vote blue? I think blue provides a bit more economic relief for just working people in general. Red tends to be a bit more supply side, and they don't consider like working class as much. I'd love to have maybe a bit more like pluralism in the representation of who we can vote for, but that's just not a possibility.
So let me ask you, as a young Gen Zer, and sounds like a guy, why haven't you gone down the rabbit hole of the Ben Shapiro's, the Charlie Kirks, and Joe Rogan's, Candace Owens, and all that group?
Why have I, or why haven't I?
Yeah, what has kept you away from espousing some of their beliefs?
Well, to be like completely honest, I was pretty far. Like I was pretty far right. I'm from Texas, so it was like the default was being conservative.
You're indoctrinated.
So,
yes.
Yeah, I guess so. But I was pretty far right, like very like alt right, and I thought that was like being different and niche and stuff like that. But my junior year, like started reading like philosophy and economics and shit like that. So I just became, I guess, more aware of my environment, and like politics is like really impactful. So I stopped being like a libertarian, stopped being alt-right, and try to do like the most amount of good for the most amount of people is kind of just like my philosophy.
Well done.
I think blue represents that.
You would do your generation proud, and I wish there was more. Obviously, there's so much influence that's sort of the algorithm rabbit's hole that is pulling a lot of your generation into a really bad, dangerous place for your generation. At least it's not every young man.
I think one of the main contributors to people falling into like political apathy or just these very radical groups is the fact that there's not really much to look forward to as a young person. Like we really are priced out of the economy, and like as a college student, like a lot of my buddies have like a shit ton of debt, and like the job opportunities just aren't there, and it's not there's not a lot of economic opportunity that was like granted to our parents and stuff. So it kind of I give them a bit lenient a bit of leniency in terms of why they were like developed to be a certain way, but I think that we need to do a better job at stabilizing the economy so young people aren't just completely isolated.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I hope that your generation realizes, it's this anti-government um, thought process or, point of view that a lot of people have is like the only solution your generation has to fix these problems is government. Like they're not going to fix themselves. Corporations aren't going to do it for you. Billionaires aren't going to do it for you guys. It has to be government, right? And being involved proactively in understanding that government is not your enemy, that it's the solution, no matter what your particular views are on issues. And that's what a lot of people seem to be convincing your generation out of, that, you're just blaming some other group of people and not thinking to get involved in government, because that is literally the only solution for your generation.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of was forced into being political. Like my parents are like my grandparents are those old people that like rain, like sun or hail, like sunshine or hail, they're gonna vote. Like they're one of those old people, and I realized like I don't know why my grandma's getting up at like the crack of dawn to go vote in the midterms, and like she goes to like all the school board meetings. Like old people are really more in tune with like how important politics are, and I try to I canvass for politicians that I like. I'm Troy Nails is my representative, but I've tried to primary him with a couple of representatives, and I try to be more politically involved when I can, when I'm like really not when I'm busy with school and stuff like that. But it's a bit harder when nobody else does it. Like it can't be in like singularity, and it's just like everybody's convinced that politics doesn't matter, and so it's like rule of the people who do, the rule of like the people who are politically active.
Right. And that's the thing. Politics is not a spectator sport, right? It's participation and democracy, not politics, but democracy in general. And what I try and convey to your generation, every generation, that politics is more impactful on your life than virtually anything else. And of course, you don't have direct impact on it like you do about going to get a job and being able to afford things, but nothing has such an impact on your life than government. And it's not to say too much government or over intervention by government, but there has to be that right balance, because government literally affects everything that you're doing, even right now. Like if it sounds like you're in a car, well, if you have a crash, that airbag that saves you, well, that is government. If that, it's the seatbelts that are in that car, well, that's government. The lights going out, or, making sure your car doesn't catch on fire, or the road that you're driving, the air that you're breathing, literally everything around you, government has an impact on. And it's important that people understand that, because there's not a single thing that you do in your life where the government's policies are having a tremendous impact on every moment of your life.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the air that you breathe, because I, funny enough, want to work for the EPA someday. I feel like my city, specifically Houston, we have a lot of downstream effects from being like oil and gas capital of the world, and like we have a lot of side effects from pollution and just like environmental harm in general. And earlier this year, Trump replaced the head of the EPA and deregulated, but also just like all of the chairs of like these federal boards that have been replaced or threatened to be replaced. I think it's like really I think that shows like the importance of these like boards, because like if they care enough to replace somebody or fire somebody, that obviously means that these these regulatory boards, these enforcement boards have some sort of influence. And I want to be a part of something that like can actually make an impact and like make sure our city doesn't go to absolute shit.
Yeah, I would just leave you with, I appreciate your participation, and obviously for all the research you did and for your grandma and so forth. Like that's, they've been involved in civics, and I just encourage people to, like, civics is, it's not boring. It's really impactful to you, specifically your generation, right? And all of us, of course. So thanks for joining. I really appreciate it. I'm going to respond to a couple of comments here, and I hope to see you around more. And if you can share the channel with more people, some of my top videos, if you look in my profile, and just share maybe one or two of those top videos, because that gets the point that everything comes back to the corruption by special interests, corporations, and billionaires. And if we could ever solve that problem, which is a big problem to solve, then you can solve everything else like that we've been talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me up. I think, you're patient too as well. So I respect you for hosting these lives.
Thank you,
Have a good
Trace.
night.
You too. Bye. All right. So DM had some really good comments, and then we're going to shut down. My mom worked at the voting polls. So I really appreciate your comments, DM. I've been reading all of them. Gen Z is the future. No doubt about it. It's not a waste. And I thought we had somebody else. When will big corporates stay away from big government for good, or is it permanently glued together? That's a great, and Will, I see you here a lot as well. So thank you for following. Big corporates stay away from big government. They'll never stay away from big government, right? Unless we force them to, right? The big corporations are going to continue to infiltrate government, just like a lot of other special interests, Christian nationals, foreign agents, and so forth. Every organization or group that has their own motives that are against democracy are going to try and always influence our government. So unless we ban money and participation by those corporations, they're never going to leave government. They're only going to continue to take it over, right? Because we don't have a functioning representative democracy. We only have a corporatocracy. It's functioning as a corporatocracy or a plutocracy. That's where we're at currently in terms of how we're functioning. And at some point, if we allow corporations to win this game, then we're going to have a full corporate monarchy, right? Where the corporations are basically electing a CEO style monarch. That's what will happen. Or it could be the Christian nationals trying to turn our country into a full Christian, a religious fascist state. If that might be a little bit extreme, but actually I don't think it is extreme. So let's see. I thought there was one other person. There is not. Mr. Global, any parting thoughts? We had quite a few people on YouTube as well. So Gus and Jim and Skylight, I really appreciate the comments over there as well.
No, we're fighting the good fight, I think. I think the only thing that I was thinking is that maybe 2028 is right. Is it 2028? Yeah. Maybe that's the year that we try to turn the dial
Yeah,
towards the center.
I think there's really, people are probably looking, I hear people saying it's impossible. Most people are pretty supportive of the idea, but there's not too many people on both YouTube and TikTok tonight. But I want people to leave something as crazy as this sounds, that to vote independent or third party, it is not practical to vote independent or third party right now. We all know that. It's a waste of your vote if you do. But in the social media age, what if we had a video? What if we created a unique video that someday gets 1 million views, or 5 million views, or 10 million views, and that starts to grow? You get a few videos out in social media where the message of, hey, we need to stop talking about immigration so much, or abortion, or gun rights. Can we just start talking about eliminating corruption? If one of those videos can get, like some of my videos on TikTok have hundreds of thousands or 150,000, whatever it might be, maybe someday that's 1 million. And then all of a sudden, all the other videos start to get a little bit more traction because now there's more followers and more subscribers. And then that keeps metastasizing slowly, right? So it's such a small group in terms of people that are seeing this and watching this. But there are more people, like 75 million of them, we know that at least, that probably would go along with this. So it's a matter of reach. That's all it's really a matter of. So how long does it take us to reach those people? It could be a year, it could be 5 years, it could never happen. We just don't know, right? And the only thing we can do is May 2028, as Will S. says, the only thing we can do is I need every single person's help on here, on all the platforms, to like, to subscribe, to follow. You don't have to agree with everything that I say. I have a lot of personal thoughts on specific issues, but I will never ram them down people's throats, other than the one thing that eliminating corruption, baby, right? And replacing all career politicians. If you don't agree with those two things, please don't watch these lives.
I mean, that's like That's like the one thing probably that would fix 80% of our issues.
Yeah, which would allow us to move on to fix everything. Like there's not just these 2 or 3 issues that we all argue about. There's literally hundreds and hundreds of issues that our government needs to start paying attention to, and it can never do that because it doesn't have representation. But you could write you got a board at home. I've seen you on your
I try to write stuff down.
yeah, like if you had to write a list of every issue that our government should be tackling for society and our economy and all the different aspects, there would be a list of probably 5,000 things. And yet we still
Sure.
fight about abortion or gun rights. And like, holy shit, like when are we
When are we
going
going to move on to the next thing?
right? We keep regurgitating the same shit.
Yes.
Like,
We'll talk about wasting your breath.
yeah. And so those people that are here, like, please, whenever someone starts arguing about an issue, switch it back to like, if we just eliminated corruption from our special interest corporations and billionaires and we prevented lobbying, then we could fix everything else you're talking about. Like that has to be the mission, like of millions of people. One person's not going to do it. Me and you aren't going to do it. It's just going to be all of us
Well,
slowly.
why not? Why not?
That's right.
Why
That's
not you?
true.
I think we have to, it has to be this perspective of positivity, it has to be. We have to manifest it, manifestation.
Hope again, because
If
politics
we
is
all,
hope and hate.
well, if we, the life's too depressing, life's too depressing. We need some hope. I've got my black book with all the stuff that I write down, things that you mentioned. I'm like, you know what? That's a really good idea. Or somebody that pops in, even Rick. Maybe Rick says something that's
Right?
got a good idea. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to write that down. I feel like more people need to have their little black book and they're writing down little things that they would change. And
Yeah, I
you
had a
just
couple
have to
nice
have interest
comments
in it.
in YouTube as well. So I do really appreciate Sir Night says, I respect the dialogue. Keep up the the respect of other people and not belittling people or something like that. I'm trying to go through the comments, but that really means a lot to me, just so you guys know that when you guys like the tenor of our conversations here, that I appreciate that, because I think that's solidarity. As Divine One, I vote American solidarity. Oh, that's a beautiful expression, right? I vote American solidarity. Absolutely. Politics of corporations and oligarchs. Okay, it's late where I am. I know it's even later where you are. Thanks for everybody for watching. If you can please follow and share some of the top videos underneath my profile. And there's also a plan. So we don't just talk about problems here. We try and talk about the solutions. And there's a very detailed, well, not overly detailed, but a high level plan at tinyurl.com/TK Civics Plan. You can find the link under my profile on both YouTube and TikTok. So if you take a moment to even upvote that article that's on Medium and or Substack, and write any comments, read the plan and write your comments. I'm happy. It's open to public comment, and I'm always wanting to hear from more people. And we have some really awesome people in these lives with awesome comments. So we really appreciate everyone being here, and we'll see you everyone tomorrow.
Thanks for having me. Have a good one.
Thanks, Mr. Global. Good night. Good night, everyone. I'm going to leave everybody with, I haven't done it in a couple of days. If we want to have last inspiring, I think it's inspiring. Let me know if you think it's inspiring. It's the opening scene to The Newsroom. And I don't care if you're MAGA or liberal or in between. Please listen to the words from, oh man, what's his name again? Well, you're going to hear it.
Check, but he gets to hit you with it.
All right, so listen to this as we close out.
It costs votes, it costs airtime and column inches. You know why people don't like liberals? Because they lose. If liberals are so fucking smart, how come they lose so goddamn always? Hey. And with a straight face, you're gonna tell students that America is so star-spangled awesome that we're the only ones in the world who have freedom? Canada has freedom. Japan has freedom. The UK, France, Italy, Germany, Spain, Australia, Belgium has freedom 207 sovereign states in the world, like 180 of them have freedom.
All right.
And yeah, you, sorority girl, just in case you accidentally wander into a voting booth one day, there's some things you should know. And one of them is, there is absolutely no evidence to support the statement that we're the greatest country in the world. We're 7th in literacy, 27th in math, 22nd in science, 49th in life expectancy, 178th in infant mortality, 3rd in median household income, number 4 in labor force, and number 4 in exports. We lead the world in only 3 categories: number of incarcerated citizens per capita, number of adults who believe angels are real, and defense spending, where we spend more than the next 26 countries combined, 25 of whom are allies. Now, none of this is the fault of a 20-year-old college student, but you nonetheless are, without a doubt, a member of the worst generation ever. So when you ask what makes us the greatest country in the world, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Yosemite?
It's not over. Jeff Bridges from the newsroom.
Sure used to be. We stood up for what was right. We fought for moral reasons. We passed laws, struck down laws for moral reasons. We waged wars on poverty, not poor people. We sacrificed. We cared about our neighbors. We put our money where our mouths were, and we never beat our chest. We built great big things, made ungodly technological advances, explored the
Jeff
universe,
Daniels.
cured
Yes, thank
diseases,
you.
and we cultivated the world's greatest artists and the world's greatest economy. We reached for the stars, acted like men. We aspired to intelligence. We didn't belittle it. It didn't make us feel inferior. We didn't identify ourselves by who we voted for in the last election, and we didn't scare so easy. We were able to be all these things and do all these things because we were informed by great men, men who were revered. First step in solving any problem is recognizing there is one. America is not the greatest country in the world anymore. Enough?
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Obviously, I believe we really could be the greatest country in the world, and we need to be the leaders of the world. So it is a beautiful monologue. Thanks for the comments, everybody. Have a great night. I will see you tomorrow, and see you then.
No pun intended. If you don't.
I built this platform and others to a pretty substantial size following in just about 2.5 years. And I'm going to share with you.
Do you ever wish?
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. You guys have a good one. I don't know when I'll be back, but might take some time. You guys.
I'm the most random.
If someone came up to you and said, you need to do this.
Oh, I know it's the exact same.
It's oh God, it's really getting under my skin right now. It really ugh.
That's the experiment, Matt. They're gonna float the idea to see if people bite. They're gonna see if they